Welcome to my presentation on the carbon cycle and the laws of conservation. The beginning of this lesson, we're going to review some information from previous lessons, and these are going to be the laws of conservation of energy and the laws of conservation of mass. So you'll recall that in a previous lesson we talked about how Earth is a recycling planet, and this means that the Earth uses the same matter over and over again. And all of the matter or stuff that's on Earth right now is the same stuff that's been here since day one. And matter and energy on Earth is never created or destroyed, but it only changes form as it cycles through the planet. And then we want to review again what a scientific law is. And a scientific law is a statement that describes an observable occurrence in nature that always appears to be true. And sometimes we refer to a law as a principle. And this is different than a scientific theory, because theories can be disproven if new information or new technology becomes available. But scientific laws are very well established and are always true. And there are many life-dependent cycles. The one we're going to be talking about today is the carbon cycle, but any life-dependent cycle revolves around two scientific laws, and those are the laws of conservation of energy and conservation of mass. And the law of conservation of energy states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can be transferred or transformed from one form to another. Now, this transformation could include transformation into or from mass as matter. The total amount of energy in a closed system never changes. So again, in this picture, the chemical energy in the form of the chemical bonds and carbohydrates it's not destroyed, it's just converted or transformed into a form that the body can use called ATP. And then energy is also lost through metabolism as it's transformed into heat. It's not destroyed, it just changes form from chemical energy to heat energy. And the law of conservation of mass says that matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can change forms, but it is conserved. And different types of matter follow different paths as they cycle through the planet. We're going to see this with the carbon cycle. And you can see in this picture that water has three forms: solid, liquid, and gas. And if you had as that ice cube melts, it's not decreasing in amount, it's just changing form. And the same thing when liquid changes to a gas, it just changes its form, it's not being destroyed. And both of these scientific laws apply to the carbon cycle. And the carbon cycle is very important to all ecosystems and ultimately to life on Earth. The carbon cycle is critical to the food chain. It's really carbon that's being passed from in the form of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates from organism to organism. And living tissues contain carbon in the forms of protein, fat, and carbohydrates. These are organic molecules, meaning they contain carbon. Any organic molecule contains carbon. But in living things, carbon is found in the molecules protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And carbon in these tissues is recycled in various processes, which we will learn about in upcoming slides. So human activities like heating homes and cars burn fossil fuels, and this is called combustion. And this process gives off carbon dioxide into the air. You'll note in this picture, you see the home and there's smoke. It's burning fuels, and that is releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. You can see that arrow pointing from the house into the air. So that indicates the direction of carbon flow. And then also during respiration, animals introduce carbon into the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. You see our little cow here. He's breathing out carbon dioxide, which is going off into the atmosphere. Now, carbon exists in living things as protein, fat, and carbohydrates, but it exists in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. We are talking about carbon dioxide in it, which is a gas. And then you can see our little blue or green arrow pointing from the atmosphere into the plant. And this is indicating that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is absorbed by green plants, which we also know them as producers, to make food. And that process is photosynthesis. So the process of photosynthesis removes carbon dioxide from the air. And when animals feed on green plants, they pass on carbon compounds unto other animals in the upper levels of the food chains. And then those animals give off carbon dioxide into the atmosphere during respiration. Now, carbon dioxide is also given off when plants and animals die. We see our poor little birdie there has died, and he is being decomposed by bacteria and fungi. This occurs when decomposers such as bacteria and fungi break down dead plants and animals and release carbon compounds stored in them. This process is called decomposition, and so decomposition recycles the carbon into the soil, but it also releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now we're going to talk a little bit about fossil fuels again. Our little dinosaur here, he's so cute, and he says, when I grow up, I want to be a fossil fuel. But on a more serious note, energy that's trapped in dead materials, like dead plants and animals, can turn into fossil fuels over time when exposed to intense pressure and heat. And then these fossil fuels can be used at a later time in the process of combustion. So this is a nice summary of the material of what we went through and how it relates to the carbon cycle. On the left, you'll see that carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. Now, this is on land. We're really only talking about land. There's one other way that carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere, over the oceans, but we're not really getting into that right now. That will be more when you are learning about this in Earth space science. So for all our intents and purposes, photosynthesis is the way that carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere. And carbon dioxide is added to the atmosphere through three processes, and that's cellular respiration, decomposition, and combustion, or the burning of fossil fuels. And if you look at this picture, you can see we have multiple ways that carbon dioxide is added to the atmosphere, and we only see one way that the carbon dioxide is removed from the atmosphere. And if too much carbon dioxide builds up in the atmosphere, then that results in something called global warming, because carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas which traps heat on the planet. And so it's very important that we have enough producers to keep the amount of carbon dioxide in balance in the atmosphere. And currently on our Earth, we're going through massive deforestation on this planet. And so we're drastically reducing the number of producers on this planet, and we're seeing the negative impact of that. So decreasing the number of producers or plants on this planet has a very significant negative impact in the carbon cycle. Well, thanks for watching this presentation, and I hope it helps you in your study efforts.